Good evening and welcome to Wednesday, January 22nd, Land Use and Special Studies Committee meeting here at the Carmel Library. We'll go around the room and say who we are. Okay, if we could start with you.
Kay Gaither, citizen.
Jake Allen with Indy Star.
Dean Block, citizen.
Adrian Keeling with the Department of Community Services.
Chris Miller with Lennar Homes.
Mike Caldwell with the Department of Community Services.
Audra Moore, citizen. Cindy Johnson, citizen.
Chris Butts with Saddle Creek.
Aaron Baker and Dan Baker, landowners.
Jessica Comp, Deputy Clerk.
Teresa Ayers, City Council.
Matt Snyder, City Council.
Anita Joshi, City Council.
David Tenery with Lennar.
Sean Blackburn, Lennar.
John Dobashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger.
Jim Schinover, Nelson and Frankenberger.
And Sergey Gruchukin with City Legal.
And Councilor Midnar will be walking in shortly.
Please go ahead and
Oh,
introduce.
that's Mr. Dan Baker. I think, did you introduce him?
Okay,
That's who you're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about?
yes,
Okay.
sorry, thank you so much.
Okay, so the only, last meeting, ordinance Z 694-24, a development at 146th and Town came to this committee. There was a lot of conversation, and Lennar was tasked with taking feedback from the public and taking another stab at what they had presented. And I believe you have something to present today?
Yeah, John Dobashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger. I'll just leave this out here. This is the plan that we discussed at the last committee meeting that came out of Plan Commission. I believe everybody in the audience and the committee members, the council members have a copy of the revised plan and then product that's below that. I'll take that, Matt, it's right there. If I've got 2 or 3 more copies up here if anybody doesn't have one that wants one. As Councilor Snyder indicated, Lennar was asked to take a strong look at 2 topics in particular, one with regard to density, the other specifically with regard to townhomes. The amended plan that we have a black and white of that we're sharing with you this evening, if those modifications are acceptable to the committee, we would task the designers with updating a color plan with that, as well as the 2 additional items in Exhibit B, which is a connectivity exhibit and open space exhibit, which are 2 more technical documents that we would import into the overall PUD before we appeared in front of the City Council for adoption consideration at a future meeting. But specifically with regard to this plan, the specific changes have been removal of the townhomes entirely. There would be no more townhomes with the plan. Those townhomes in that area specifically where there were single-family homes and townhomes in areas B and C in accordance with the plan, those that wrap Town Road and along 146th Street, down to the line that's adjacent with the homes that were adjacent to Saddle Creek. Those have been replaced with a single-story product that are followed up on the several additional pages after that. The second page identifies a streetscape that one might see driving down 146th Street or Town Road from those 2 vantage points. And then a discussion of that individual product. That product includes four floor plans between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet. There's both ranch and 2-story homes. There's only 1 ranch model. The other 3 are 2-story homes. Everything's an attached 2-car garage that accesses via an alley, has covered patios and brick on all 4 sides of those. And in addition to that, every home would have a first floor bedroom, but 80% of the product has a first floor primary on the first level. So everything has bedrooms. 80% of the product has a primary bedroom on that first level. The homes that were to the south, the 15 now that are along the south perimeter of the site, all of those previously had a primary bedroom on the main level for those dwellings. Amenities are unchanged throughout the project. Tree preservation and common area landscaping is unchanged. We've edited the architecture to reflect the revised home product that you see in the images here, and the rental restrictions that we had previously discussed both at Plan Commission and Council. Those are also unchanged. The reduction in terms of numbers where the plan that we reviewed at your last committee meeting was a total of a maximum 87 homes. It's now down to a maximum of 50 homes. There was a slight adjustment along the south perimeter in Area A from 17 homes down to 15. And the other two areas, which comprised approximately 70, are down to roughly 35 homes in that space, so about cut in half. Again, from 87 maximum down to 50. When you look at that plan that's the black and white, there's an eyebrow. I'll call it an eyebrow if you follow me here. You come in off of the frontage road, and right at the far east end of this street, right here on the south street, there's a little eyebrow. Engineering has asked us to edit that so that the curb follows the turn line. So our updated exhibit will show that. It'll get rid of the eyebrow, and that curve line will follow more closely a turn someone would make to stay on that roadway to turn north. It'll still be a controlled intersection, but they didn't want to see the flare out there. They wanted to see it more closely hug the radius or the center line of the roadway. That's a change that you'll see. But again, amenities and pathways and everything like that are still in place. There's still minimum 3 acres of open space. The open space exhibit would be updated, as well as the connectivity plan. We've shared this with all the council members in the email we sent out yesterday. Included in that transmittal, we copied DOCS, both Mike Hollowell, the director, and Alexia Lopez, the staff planner in charge of reviewing the request. It would be our understanding that their role after tonight's meeting, in the event the committee would make a recommendation to forward the item back to the full council, that they would they would review the ordinance to make sure it complies with everything that we've shared with you this evening. I have a dozen copies of the red line. If I know the committee got this yesterday, if you want to go through it, I can pass it out and answer any questions or follow along with a review of the red line. But everything that we've talked about just now are just items that are the technical papering of it occurs within that ordinance document. Glad to answer any questions. We've got actually 3 different folks with Lennar here in the event that there's questions that need further discussion. But hopefully I've covered all those bases in terms of items that you heard from the public, as well as we heard from the committee that Lennar should take a strong look at modifying in order to gain greater consensus.
I want to say something before we move on. Councilor Worrell called me about 10 minutes before the meeting, wanted to be here because he felt like he contributed, which he did, but had a previous engagement with the mayor this evening and just could not make it. You said 2-car garage, but these pictures show 3.
3 is an option.
Okay, 3 is an option, perfect. Basements as an option, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
basement on here is an option. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I will be very frank when we collectively asked you to take a strong look at this. This is not what we were expecting at all. Way beyond what I could have even fathomed a developer coming back with. So as far as listening to this committee and the council, and most importantly, the residents, and then coming back with this, I'm blown away. So I appreciate that.
To Councilor Worrell's point, it shows what a good partner you are to the city, and it's much appreciated.
I was very impressed.
Yep.
I know that it was not an easy process at all, but I appreciate the hard work that went into coming up with a plan like this. The preservation still of, some of the trees, the wetlands, the additional, all of the things that you did. Lennar has been a great partner, and I am very pleased to see this, so.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah.
Thank you for going above and beyond truly what Matt said. I was not expecting this. Thank you.
It's very rare a developer
Yeah.
goes all in like this. Couple things I had said I would do at the last meeting, sort of done. One is I did leave a message with one of the county commissioners to talk about what the streetscape is on 146th Street. Got a message back. We will be talking at the end of the week. Left a message with Westfield's, one of Westfield's engineers that handles all of their private development, because I expect he will be handling the development on their side of the road, to ask him about what kind of landscape barrier they will have for their commercial project over there. And then today I met with John Thomas, who handles stormwater for Carmel Engineering, just to get further commitment, because that's the one thing that kind of didn't get fully vetted, and I have a hard time. If the math works, the math works, but as this moves through the process, to fully look at the global impact, the comprehensive stormwater impact of this, knowing that there are some concerns about that. Does anybody, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate Lennar on being a fantastic member of the community, listening to the community. I'd also like to thank Mr. Baker and his wife. I'm sure that there were some sacrifices on their part to make this happen for the community that this land is part of. And those residents that live around here are extremely appreciative of, again, the lengths that you've gone to, not only to change, you didn't change, you ripped it up and you started again. And that's so refreshing. And the fact that the Land Usage Committee was a platform for that to happen with partners like the public and the councillors, and to come to this sort of final product is just fantastic. So it's great that the neighbours have got someone like Lennar putting a fantastic product on their doorstep, which will only help them and hopefully help themselves. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Is anybody else from the public? Yeah, Dee.
Ditto.
You know, but we really appreciate this, and we weren't expecting it, and it's fantastic. Thank you so much.
And for those of you that don't know, Dee and her writing partner, Jill Meisenheimer, are kind of the Carmel watchdogs on PUDs. So they keep an eye on all of us. So to hear Dee echo positive sentiments is very rare, and
And it feels good.
it feels good.
It's a win.
I do have one quick follow-up question. The amenities, can you refresh us what those are going to be? Is there a playground in there, or what were those, John?
The boardwalk.
They did include a playground, gazebo, seating area, the trails, of course, fire pit, that boardwalk element that jutted out over the pond, and then just a larger lawn area is identified where it says park on the plan. The revised space is right where now it says amenity, so that is actually a larger lawn space than what was previously provided, more of a square area than broken up into two pockets.
Thank you.
I wish to just say thank you to the committee and also the councilmen and women for listening to the concerns of citizens. It's very refreshing to live in a community that does listen. And to Lennar as well, I will be speaking very highly of you for a very long time. It means a lot that you are willing to listen to what the citizens of Carmel want the quality of life for their next neighbors to look like, and what we want the future of Carmel to look like. And I think what you're doing now is taking part in why Carmel's gonna remain top 10 places in the nation. I'm very proud to live in Carmel, and having this in my backyard and knowing that the people who live here will have the same quality of life that I have enjoyed. I think it speaks volumes to what you do, and I will definitely be recommending to my friends, if they can purchase within Lennar, that you do very good work. And so we really appreciate that.
Thank you. So we effectively have gone from, what is that? You had a photo.
The original one, you don't even want to.
Well, we went from a wall of this to what I consider a traditional neighborhood that fits with the neighbors, which I think has been, at least mine, I think I should speak for all of us, that matches the surrounding neighborhoods, and that was well done. Councilors, do you have any more comments?
No, I just want to thank you for your time and your effort, and on behalf of being a Plan Commission member, realizing the amount of work that went into this, starting at that very level and then coming to this ending, is very impressive. And I really appreciate the fact that you listened to my diatribes about renting and ensuring that people can actually buy a home and live in a home in Carmel, and it's not gobbled up by institutional buyers. So I want to thank you so very much for that. That's really an important issue for me, is people being able to buy and live in a home in our beautiful city. So thank you so very much for that.
I think we were also very fortunate to have an extra land use meeting and not have council on Monday to get this
Yep.
through, and it wasn't rushed. Again, appreciate that.
No, I think you guys did an amazing job, and I'm very pleased. I couldn't be happier with, I think when community and people come together, and they come together with the spirit of doing something in an honest way, and they trust each other to come to the table in an honest way, I think you get a good result. I really believe that, so I think it worked here.
Doctor, I think you said a very critical word, and that's trust. We appreciate the residents trusting us that we will represent you, and then trust in our partnerships with the developers is huge, because there hasn't always been that. And as far as building the trust, Lennar, you've taken not just massive leaps forward in how I think not only council engages, but the community looks at developers. When you come back and actually listen, and the transformation's huge. Hopefully that sets a trend around Carmel. Would anybody like to move for a positive or negative recommendation?
I move that we send this to City Council with a positive recommendation pending, you don't have any, well, let me just stop there. You don't have any other outlying issues with the pond, correct? Okay, so.
Any other legal stuff that has to get, no, we're good, okay.
So I move that we send this back to City Council with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It will go back to council with a unanimous positive recommendation.
Would you anticipate placement on the February 3rd agenda?
Can we get it on the February 3rd agenda?
What would be the deadline for us to submit the as amended ordinance? Understood.
Say Friday?
This Friday, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Do we have, is this all we're doing today?
Just, you want to follow up with the UDO discussion very quickly? We'll let these guys.
We have a
Yes.
question for you.
Yeah. We'll let these guys.
We're gonna talk a little bit about the UDO. You will not hurt our feelings if you want to leave.
If you have better things to do with your time, please go. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you, Ms. Bigger.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Bigger.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you got a chance to say it hello yourself if you
Oh.
wanted to.
I-
She did a beautiful job, so.
38 years marriage, my wife can.
She can introduce you.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks so
Have a
much.
good night,
See you
everyone.
See you next
Yes,
week.
please.
Yeah.
That's fine. Thanks, team. We have to move through on chapter next week.
You wanna join the table?
Mike, you wanna join us?
See you 24/7.
Thanks, guys.
I apologize for my tardiness. I had it stuck in my head that it was 6 o'clock, and I know that it starts
Shannon,
at
that was my
5:30.
fault.
No, it was, and I was just sitting there talking to Dave, just around the table. He's like, doesn't your meeting start at 5:30? I go, oh my gosh, I gotta go. And need to text me, I have to go.
Where are you? It's okay. We're all here.
Yeah.
All good. This is great.
So, we're good to go. As we discussed very late in 2024, this committee gave DOCS staff and Office of Corporation Counsel direction to create a list of items that we consider priority for us. We started that process, we started discussing it and meeting on our end, and we thought that we would start with kind of a low-hanging fruit, if you will, which is, but yet important amendment as we see it, which is amendment of section 903 in UDO, which is Development Plan and ADLS. Development Plan ADLS, as Shannon knows, probably more so than any of you really, because she sits on Plan Commission, is bread and butter what Plan Commission does. I would say about 70 to 80% of what they consider a development plan and ADLS, and it is within their exclusive jurisdiction. To give you kind of a background, that in most commercial districts, development plan is required, as well as ADLS. Development plan outlines, this is basically a development plan right here. So it outlines the overall development, it outlines street access, it outlines traffic patterns, it outlines parking, it outlines dimensions, it outlines how far the houses and structures are from each other, where areas of preservations are, where easements are, access points, etc., etc. And ADLS, as the name suggests, architecture, design, landscaping, signage, and, well, it actually should be 5 letters.
Lighting.
Double L.
And lighting, double L, goes to a secondary level of review, and it really is to comply with city standards on things that don't affect the neighbors. So, and again, ADLS and development plan are required for most commercial developments, and PUDs are a little bit different. In most districts, but 2, B1 and B2 districts require ADLS only. They're designed, at least initially they were designed and looked at as business districts with the least amount of regulation. So a little bit more loose, a little bit more incentivizing property owners and business owners who want different kinds of businesses. It's intentionally very broad. There are very few B1s and B2s left in the city. A vast majority of them, about 80%, my estimate, allocated in the core. They're kind of tend to be closer to industrial districts. Kind of, it's a good transition, and Mike and Adrian, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a good transition from industrial to business to commercial and residential eventually. As you know, the core in downtown in Carmel is the core. The core in Carmel has been developing very differently from pretty much any other area in Carmel. Most of it happens to be a redevelopment, a lot of private-public partnerships, lots of transition to C1, C2 districts, or some other a little bit more dense or multi-use districts. It really hasn't been too many traditional rezones in the core as we see it, and traditional types of development. Because initially B1 and B1 was excluded from development plan requirements and only deals with ADLS, and this is just speculation on my part, I think at the time perhaps council or DOCS, or maybe a little bit of both, weren't comfortable enough to really separate ADLS and development plan completely, So the way the ordinance is drafted, 903 specifically, is in development plan, you will see quite a few things that really belong to ADLS, such as signage plan, landscaping plan, etc. And in ADLS, you see some provisions that really belong to development plan, such as parking, for example. Parking is in both. Identical language, but both in development plan and the ADLS. And the reason for it is, well, what if the use changes? You have a B1, B2 district, you have one use, let's say a storage facility, and then a workout facility, a health club comes around, and all of a sudden your parking needs change, your traffic changes. So because of that, ADLS does have some features of development plan. Why is it problematic? It's problematic because development plan and ADLS are treated differently from notice standpoint, and they're treated differently from hearing standpoint. Development plan requires public hearing, ADLS does not require public hearing. Development plan are also heavily regulated by state law. There's a whole section on development plan and state law, and it requires certain things to be present. Now, but it also allows municipalities to go beyond what's required and separate development plan for something different. Carmel has ADLS, a couple of other communities have ADLS as well, but it's a fairly new concept. But a lot more and more communities kind of go beyond minimum requirements of development plan under Indiana code and develop ordinances for UDOs such as Carmel's. And the issue there is that if you combine and commingle the provisions in development plan and ADLS, it creates a possibility, very real possibility, in fact it did happen in recent past, for legal challenges based on the argument that, hey, your ADLS is very similar to development plan. You don't separate them enough, and therefore all the requirements of development plan should be present in DLS. Now, we met with Department of Community Services, and we talked it over, and I sent them a memo with outlining this argument and potential solutions to that. And there are basically two solutions, as far as I see it. And we are very much ready and willing and open for suggestions from you guys as well. Number one solution is to carve out B1, B2 in ADLS and incorporate certain provisions of development plan in ADLS. I think it's fairly messy, and you know it might create further confusion. I think the more elegant solution and easier solution is to accept B1, B2 districts to a development plan family, so to speak. And based on that, eliminate and truly separate development plan provisions, this kind of things that you consider today, from ADLS. But now we're not going to have any contradictions between the two or any provisions that are identical within the two. So we will eliminate that confusion and, of course, possibility for a challenge. And also, I must add, at Plan Commission level, Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, most of the time development plan and DLS comes together if it's required, if both are required. And so Plan Commission is used to consider projects kind of in a wholesome way from A to Z. However, it is not required to bring both of those petitions together. And occasionally petitioners, for various reasons, usually tied with financing, etc., get a development plan approved first. A True Hotel was the example most recently. And then come back a year or maybe even two later for ADLS once we finalize the details. And then rules change because ADLS have different rules for notice and what you consider, and hearing rules as well. And sometimes plan commissioners, it's hard for them to stay in that lane, ADLS only lane. And so once the discussion spills, it creates additional possibilities for arguments and potential challenges in plan commission decisions. And in fact, it did happen in the past, and so that's why we want to make sure that it's not gonna happen in the future. And I think it is time to really incorporate B1, B2 into development plan. There's really, when we discussed this, I don't think there's any reason to keep them separate anymore. All of those areas are built out. So it really will be either a change of use, and if it's a significant change of use, I think development plan a lot of times is very much needed, or it will be a redevelopment project, but there will be something completely new there anyways, so development plan is probably warranted there as well. So that's the reasoning. We're happy to answer any follow-up questions you may have, but if you don't, we're just asking for guidance, which way would you prefer? And again, the proposed two ways is one, incorporate B1, B2 into development plan, and then separate the provisions into development plan and ADLS, or alternatively, carve out provisions within ADLS for B1 and B2 only.
No.
So it's but we're only talking about B1 and B2. There are no other
Yep, that's
areas that you think would be similarly affected.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Because they're the only two that
Two
are
that
not
are not in.
part, yeah. So
Okay.
for me, I think from just a plan commission perspective, it just makes utter sense. And we did ask, just for the record, Matt, part of the discussion was what were the drawbacks? Were there any unintended consequences for this? And we were assured that there was really nothing came to mind, right? We had that discussion,
Right.
so,
And if something comes up, we can always re-examine, but.
yeah, amend, yeah.
And it really creates uniformity within all business commercial districts within the city. I think perhaps initially that incentive worked, but honestly, I don't remember the last time we had ADLS within B1, B2. It's kind of a rare animal at this point.
A lot of those, the existing B1, B2 are also encumbered by like the Old Town Overlay Zone.
Right.
That does require a development plan, so we were able to kind of fix that, the gap in that through the overlay zones, but this really allows it to be more of a consistent cleanup from the foundational level. And I think the separating the ADLS and DP, so that's a little cleaner too, will be really helpful.
So do the overlay zones then, I think we talked about this, and this was one of the questions I asked, they encompass right now all of these B1 and B2 areas anyway, or they don't? There are a couple that are,
Well,
I don't believe
I think there are a couple that are
there are a couple that are still outside
Yeah.
of the, so this would help to
Yeah.
clean that up without having to create another
overlay.
overlay zone?
Yeah.
Okay, so that also streamlines the process. Okay.
Certainly makes plan commission's job a lot easier.
And this way, we can really stay within ADLS development plan lanes, and it's just easier to explain for us to plan commission, like, hey, you already approved development plan, so all of those issues are not on the table. You're
Yeah.
only looking at A, B, C, and D, and that's it. So that creates a more straightforward, clean
Clear
determination,
process.
Yeah.
rather than mixing up a bunch of stuff from development plan and vice versa.
And Adrian did, for me at least, take a deep dive into this last week, a week ago. So that was very helpful, and I do think that this is definitely something that,
And to your point too, to Teresa's point, when you have a plan commission that has however many new members on it, this
Perfect
certainly,
timing.
this is like the best time to
Right.
implement it, because they'll have the new ordinance in front of them.
Right.
Which
And
will
it's a
certainly
big
be-
section too. I mean, it's used
Yeah.
all with, it probably, 903 is probably used more often than any other section of the whole ordinance. Because it is, again, it's bread and butter for plan commission. So just sprucing it up, making sure that all the definition, of course, and we will amend it in its entirety. So we will, update references to thoroughfare plan, for example. TAC review is obsolete. There are a couple of things that are cosmetic that will also be good to amend right now, because you're right, we do have 3 new plan commission members and four new plan commission members. 4 new plan commission members.
I
so-
consider myself new, so. Me.
TAC reviews obsolete because that would be done for the development plan, not the,
So TAC reviews is just really the verbiage. It's not a committee anymore.
Oh.
It's a, because committee requires open door law compliance, and it used to operate in a different fashion, but now, especially since COVID accelerated that quite a bit, it really is an internal staff review. Because there's a lot of departments involved, and it's almost impossible to get, 20, 25 people in the same room. Because, you have, a lot of times you have DOCS, engineering, legal, fire,
Utilities.
police, utilities,
Yeah.
et cetera. So it's really is more of a technical legal protection for us, so make sure that we comply with that, so we don't refer to it as TAC anymore, we're not run as committees.
And it
Or
goes
on-
through, it goes through,
Zoning.
no, the.
Project
project-
Docs.
project
Our
Docs.
online
Sounds
submittal
good.
software has
Yeah.
really allowed us to get information out and comments back from all of the typical TAC members, utilities, different departments, without having to meet in person. That all of those comments are, the plans are submitted and distributed through that, and then the comments are received back through that platform.
And
All in
having-
communication with the petitioner as well.
Yeah, and having read TAC reviews ad nauseum, it really is a very streamlined way to do it.
Mhm.
It's helpful for us too.
Absolutely. Because otherwise you'll have projects that will be in committees for double, triple the time, just because of how many people are involved in looking at it, including yourselves.
Yeah. Trust me, I read a lot of them.
But as far as how it runs, it's not gonna change.
Yeah.
I think the lack of TAC meetings is a disservice to the public because Project Docs is great, but when everybody's at a table, you can hash things out. And I got a TAC meeting tomorrow in another community. I mean, and it's good to, the fire department has an issue and then engineering says, well, the reason why they didn't do that was this, is it's a lot easier to do in a group than in a few sentences on a comment that may or may not get read for some time. And but if it works, it works. As far as the B1, B2 thing, that's fine. I would add, can you put that in with the rewrite in with some of the other obvious stuff that we're changing? Like,
Yeah, and that was, our second question was, how would you like to do it?
that, if you could just give us a draft.
It would probably
ordinance.
make sense
Mhm.
to get it in bulk with some other
Yeah.
items. So rather than constantly introducing
Right.
ordinances like this.
That way we can
Yeah.
knock out a chunk of.
Right, exactly.
Is that more efficient?
Since we do have quite a bit of time for our, the deadline that we discussed in August, I think it would make sense to kind of knock out a couple of things rather than doing one at a time. It's just our preference probably would be easier.
And then I've got a question, and I got some education today on some of these processes. And I'm kind of talking to these guys, but I'm really asking you to do how to make it work. But one, I really think after talking with you that pre-filing meetings should be mandatory, because otherwise, obviously when I get calls, there's already a problem.
Yeah.
But I think, to your point, a lot of those potential problems could be staved off if they were educated at a pre-filing meeting and then knew exactly what they were doing before they filed. I think that could solve a lot of problems. So maybe just something to think about.
No, we're implementing a standard pre-filing calendar,
Okay.
and historically, we would have a pre-filing, engineering would have a pre-filing, and, it just became expensive and cumbersome by having set days. Engineering, Crossroads, it does the stormwater, we'll all be in the room at the same time.
Excellent.
For pre-filing, so that's starting now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You're ahead of me.
we're making it into the plan commission calendar and the whole 9 yards, so.
The merging of documents, permits, I really want to take a strong look at.
Merging of.
So you've got to get why a developer has to get a right-of-way permit from engineering and what's your permit? Sorry,
Oh, a building permit.
a standard building permit,
Yeah.
and why those aren't one document seems inefficient.
We can look into this, and, well, one has to do with building code that runs by the state of Indiana, the other one is.
But the
more
application
local.
could be one application, right? Because they've got the building permit, right-of-way permit, stormwater permit, utility permit, and their people are jumping all over the place. Why that can't be one application and it goes to the relevant bodies, and the person today is not the first person that's brought that up.
Matt, is there another community that does that way? Do you know of, that you know of?
No, but like Indianapolis, I had an office in the basement of the Public Works building, and the only other office down there was a company called something Expeditors, and developers would go to them, pay them like, here's what we want to do, here's our money, now you jump around through all the hoops.
Yeah.
Which I did talk with engineering today about, that's maybe something to consider, sort of a concierge that would be, you could pay extra money to, that would handhold all of these things through the various different departments. I mean, the position could pay for itself based on the fees, because I don't know who wouldn't pay for that.
Yeah.
But to your question, off the top of my head, I can't think of it right now. I don't know.
Just so we could get an idea of how they do it. I mean,
a lot of communities I work in don't even have right-of-way permits.
Yeah.
So
What would be the downside of filling out, I mean, it's sort of like, I'm looking at it as like a common app for colleges, right? It's the idea of you fill out there, that's how I kind of like, when you started talking, I was like, it's like a common app. You sort of fill it out and you submit it, and then each body looks at it with its own lens and addresses the issues that need addressing. Is there a way to do that without, because that to me seems even easier than creating another body for people who might not be able to afford the concierge service.
Well, they don't have to.
Well, right, I know, they can jump through all the hoops, but your first idea of making it more streamlined and easy for everybody is just great.
well, that's just, there's a lot more hoops than just that
No,
application.
I get it, but I'm just wondering about if there are other issues where we see bottlenecks like this, streamlining the process in all the river bottlenecks so that people can kind of.
I think what's missing is the common application part. I mean, because right now, whenever a building permit comes in, all the utility, fats, oil, and grease, I mean, they all are brought into it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still, kind of unique processes, and I'm not sure we can change a lot of that. But, the question about right-of-way permit versus building permit, I mean, we're reliant on engineering to kind of sign off on a right-of-way permit before
Sure.
the building permit's issued, and a lot of these others too, and there's just, the coordination part of it is the biggest challenge. And manpower and utilities, they have one person doing, the grease trap reviews. Yeah, but I think we know how we can make some of those improvements, maybe not all of them. It's the silo part of it becomes part of the challenge too.
Well, where there can be some commonality, I think we need to look at it, because it's got to be frustrating for you guys as well. I mean, and then I heard the same story from engineering today, Like, yeah, literally across the hall, like. But then to your point though, now you've been siloed again, so we have an additional silo, which doesn't help efficiencies. That, or maybe we talk to marketing and have them put together just a real badass how to do a business in Carmel that walks you through the steps and who you need to go talk to, and because it is for the small business owner. I just don't think they should have to spend a lot of money on attorneys trying to figure out how to do it, and then a whole heck of a lot more money over engineering a site because they just don't know what to do. I mean, you're $100,000 to $200,000 in the hole for a small business owner that I think we could, if the education piece were more clear, they wouldn't need to spend that money. That's just an opinion, or not that much money. I think it's a deterrence to opening up shop. And then something else I'd like to talk about maybe in the next staff meeting, and really it's a legal question, but can you look at the methods and means to implementing, Fishers is doing one now, and I'm interested. It's kind of like a commercial HOA fee. So when a new development's built, it's not a tax, but it is a annual fee assessment.
Yeah.
And because there's a few developments being talked about that would require some city investment to make it right, and if there's a way to offset that investment, I'd be interested in
It's like
Specifically commercial HOA?
both.
like a bid district,
Yeah.
business improvement district, is that?
And I think too, Sergey and I had a conversation today as well, and something I also want to tackle is putting language in the PUDs, in the PUD ordinance, rental restrictions, so we don't have to go through this process every single time. And I think it's just something to, I realize with some of the PUDs, we have multi-use and we have apartments and such, but there's ways of carving out that language. I don't know how you feel about that, but just something that I'd like to discuss.
And I think corporate ownership
Yeah.
is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not if it's not being handled up the food chain,
Mm-hmm.
it's relying on us.
Yeah.
So, I think it makes sense.
And I'll say it again, being able to buy a single-family residential home in Carmel is important, and I'd like to make sure that these types of developments that we're doing, these infill projects, people have the opportunity to buy and live and not have institutional buyers come in and buy out blocks.
I think we need a real definition of institutional buyer, corporate buyer.
Yeah.
One thing I don't want to do is, like, for
The mom and pops.
yes, and for folks that buy a house because they want to make, like, I want my kids to live in Carmel, so it made sense for me to invest in a property
Yeah.
now, although they're 20 years away from
Yeah.
living in it, and I don't consider that me like a Chinese buyer, corporate big.
It's a very good point,
Yeah, a
Matt.
BlackRock or
Yeah.
somebody that,
Key,
they're
whatever it's
not
called,
just
yeah.
investing here, but they're
They're buying up
They're
properties
buying up
everywhere
properties.
across.
So I don't know how to, because I do strongly agree with Shannon's sentiment, but I also don't want to hurt just the guys that want to have one or two properties.
Well, and, property rights are notoriously strong in the state of Indiana, so we gotta make sure that it
Yeah.
complies with all the state law as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think and to Matt's point, like even with this 146th in town, it's very clear about that type of ownership. So it didn't penalize a person like
Oh,
you,
right.
who
Oh,
wanted to
yeah.
buy 2 homes to, give to their kids.
I think it's very easy to do this in all new developments, and
Yeah.
we absolutely should.
Special planned unit development.
Yeah, PUDs are
legislative
easy.
act, so
Yeah.
it's, it's a little bit in its all different.
Could you kind of get, like you did with this, give us some options, maybe? Like how-
Yeah, that one will definitely require some research on my part and some analysis, but yeah, I can definitely do that.
Thank you.
Thank you
And,
so much.
and Ted could do it, if you want to reach out to Ted, this would definitely be a,
Yeah, I would appreciate a second opinion on this as well.
Yeah, I just think it's something to think about. I just don't want to have to, and go through this every single time we do a PUD. Just having some basic regulations in there would be helpful, especially, and I'm just gonna say it, short-term rentals. I'd like to know specifically if we can,
I'm almost, I've changed on that to where I was kind of conservative, but now I'm at the point where, then sue us, at least we'll make it a national issue.
yeah. I mean, if you've never lived next to a short-term rental, you don't understand what it's like. And it is a revolving door. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I use it myself. I use VRBO and Airbnb. But I'm just saying, when it's, 3 doors away from you and it's a constant revolving door, it really upsets the apple cart in the fabric of your neighborhood. So, again, it also takes home ownership away from someone who wants to live in Carmel. It takes another house out of the pool. And I've read plenty of articles in the last week about institutional buyers and rentals and.
It's a difficult problem, and it's a national problem, but I think, I'll say it, I've said it before, I think Carmel leads. I think we should lead in ways that we can lead effectively, but to do it in ways that are not going to get us into
Break the law.
overt trouble. And so I think,
Yeah.
we did that with our burying cables ordinance. I think we
Took
can
a
look
second,
at.
but we got there, yeah.
Yes, it took us a little bit of time to look through it, but I think we
Yeah.
did it. So I think this is a very similar thing, but I agree with you. I think it's so important to help people to feel like
They know what they're buying into.
yes, and they're comfortable. I mean, when you're going into we do the same thing, VRBOs, but you're going into a community that knows that its bread and butter is the travel and tourism industry. Usually, those are kind of like what you're looking for, and if that's a different community, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So I agree. If people want to do that, I think it's great, but it has to be in the right space.
Said it 1,000 times. When I bought my house, I never knew I was going to live next door to 3 doors away from a hotel. I didn't buy into that. So,
Anything else, guys?
so for
Not
next
for the
meeting,
record.
for the next meeting, do we have a focus on what, other than what Matt's just spoken about? And mine's obviously going to take some time. So is there anything specific that you guys have on tap for the next meeting?
You know what? If you guys are fine with it, I can actually look at PUD rental restriction language. I think it'll be feasible to do.
If we could get that
If that's
and
something
the
that-
B1, B2, and maybe just language edits even, not substantive, then I think we could move something forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's.
I think it's great.
And I know you guys have your list too.
Well, and I guess you're thinking, we're not waiting until August to come.
That's not
forward
my
with-
thought.
Okay, so as soon as we can get a draft,
I just,
something.
I just didn't want it to be a single issue draft.
But kind of like,
Just
so a
kind of
little
block.
bigger bulks,
Yeah.
if you
Yes.
will, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And is there anything else like really substantive, I can never say that word, that needs to be addressed that we could do immediately as well?
Well, I would probably wait till agenda comes out tomorrow.
Okay.
But there will be an issue on it that we're just informed about, so that's a UDO amendment. So that was on our agenda as well, so,
Good.
but it will be presented. So I would hold on my comments until it's actually announced, so I don't put the cart before the horse.
Okay, sounds good.
Then we will adjourn. 6:30.
Right on the